With that, I love TV news. I wasn't sure TV news loved me back. But yeah, Bangor was huge for me. That was my first big break.
I mean, winter up here in Maine can be pretty tough. But call me old-fashioned. What would Christmas be without snow or slush or whatever it is we get?
When you think back to your years in both Bangor and Portland, what comes to mind?
Learning how to do this job and just falling in love with it. And having these amazing role models, you, Pat Callahan, Bob Elliott. Bob Elliott, for me, was just the gold standard in creativity. And another thing I remember about Maine is the real connection between people on air and people in the audience. Nowhere else in my entire career have I ever had the experience of just really walking through a community and having people feel very comfortable come up in a nice way and talk to you.
Even when you were in Maine, you had a lot of drive. You knew you wanted to go on. You ended up going to Boston, working there for a while, and then at the age of 29, went to work for ABC News?
28.
28.
Actually. Yeah, I was. I looked like I was just finished my bar mitzvah. I was barely post-pubescent. I believe that Lee Goldberg used to call me the plankton of the newsroom in WCSH. So when I got to ABC, I was green. I felt very green. I'm working with people like Peter Jennings and Diane Sawyer and Charlie Gibson, and I was pretty insecure about it.
So you did what a lot of people do who are insecure in a demanding competitive business. You worked like crazy.
Yes, worked like crazy. Absolutely. Worked around the clock, and when 9/11 happened, I raised my hand and said, I'll go. And I went to Pakistan and Afghanistan, and then that led to the Second Intifada in Israel, West Bank and Gaza, and then I was in Iraq 6 or 7 times, and so it really changed my life.
For a few years there, you spent a lot of time covering wars with all the misery and the horror and the ugliness that comes with that. And yet, you write about that, and one of the terms you use is that covering wars is a pure, sick rush.
Yes. People don't know that, and it's not talked about that often. But as horrible as it is to cover wars, and I think traumatic, it's also adrenaline-filled and exciting, and it can be addictive.
So when you came home after, I think it was 5 months in Iraq, you suffered a letdown that was serious enough that you felt lousy. You went to a psychiatrist. What did the psychiatrist say you had?
The psychiatrist said I was depressed. And I said, I don't feel depressed. I wasn't consciously aware of being depressed. And he said, when you're unaware of your own emotions, your body will manifest them. And that was kind of humbling, because I always thought I was reasonably self-aware, but apparently I wasn't.
You still weren't feeling all that great. You were headed out to a party one night, went to a friend's house before the party to have a drink, and did something on impulse.
Yes. For months, I felt like I had a low-grade fever, and I was having trouble getting out of bed. And a friend of mine offered me cocaine, and I was 32 years old, had never done drugs before, and I said yes. And it immediately made me feel better, and that was the start of a series of bad decisions.
How long did you use cocaine?
I would say a year and a half, and it was pretty sporadic. It wasn't like I was doing it every day. I was still, my number one priority was work, so I was really careful to never do it close to work. Definitely not when I was on the air, but it was stupid nonetheless.
Also around that time tried ecstasy.
Yes, both.
Nice line in the book about you knew you were high when you walked by a piano bar in New Orleans, and what happened?
And I heard them playing John Bon Jovi's "Slippery When Wet," or a song from "Slippery When Wet," "Living on a Dream," and it sounded good to me. That's when I knew that I was not in my right mind.
Again, around this time when you're using drugs and you were doing your normal job, you were reading the news one morning on Good Morning America. What happened?
I had a panic attack. I was overcome with this irresistible bolt of fear. My lungs seized up, my heart raced.
Health news now. One of the world's most commonly prescribed medications may be providing a big bonus. Researchers report people who take cholesterol-lowering drugs called statins for at least 5 years may also lower their risk for cancer. But it's too early to prescribe statins slowly for cancer production.
I knew I had a couple minutes left to go. I was supposed to read 6 stories, and I just couldn't breathe. So I did something I'd never done before. I punted right in the middle.
That does it for news. We're going to go back now to Robin and Charlie.
All right, thanks very much. Dan Harris at the news desk with some of the headlines of the morning.
A few minutes afterwards, what was going through your head? What were you thinking had just happened to you?
I knew I had a panic attack, and everybody was asking me, "Are you okay?" And I lied. I said, I don't know what just happened. I'm fine. It's no big deal." And then I had another newscast to do an hour later, and I was fine for that. So I think it all just faded away. But I knew what had happened, and I was freaked out.
You ended up stopping using cocaine because the doctor, realizing that the cocaine had in part led to the panic attack, said, "This is not a good idea," and you grasped this was not a good idea.
Even though I wasn't doing drugs when I was on the air, it raises the level of adrenaline in your brain and primes you to have a panic attack. And when I realized, how moronic I had been, I knew I had to make some changes.
You knew you had to make some changes in your life, and one of the paths that you went down led you to the possibility of trying meditation. Now, what had been your attitude toward the mere idea of considering meditation?
It's safe to say that my attitude was negative. When I was 5, my parents sent me to a yoga class right at this school right up the street, and the teacher didn't like the jeans I was wearing and made me take them off and do sun salutations in my tighty whities in front of all the other kids, and I had a deep-seated hatred for anything having to do with the new age or hippies ever since.
You thought meditation was bearded swamis, unwashed hippies, fans of John Tesh music.
Yes, Enya, Cat Stevens, that whole sort of genre of music. I thought people who did this were weirdos, had a lot of spare time, and were susceptible to baloney. And there was just no way I was going to do it.